The moment that the iconic theme started to play brought a smile to my face. And it never left until the end of the movie. Yeah, it was great to see the man with the head return to the silver screen. This is the Review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Cigar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. First up, Mr. Taylor First. How are you today?
Good.
And voice only, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you?
I am doing well today. I'm ready to punch a Nazi.
Good. And it's always good to punch Nazis. Today we're going to talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you really can't get enough of us, you can join our ranks. Go to cigar.freeforms.net, set up that account, get to know us, and yes, join us in our reviews or podcasts. We would love to have you on the show. Consider this your final warning. After this point, the spoilers are incoming. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, go do that first and then check out our review. We're going to do 3 rounds. First, our quick thoughts. After that, we dive deeper into our likes and dislikes for the film. And then we will end with a rating. And you never know if we have any afterthoughts. So let's begin. It's the 1960s and Indy is an old man now. He retires from teaching at the university and has long stopped chasing artifacts all around the world. But his past is once again catching up with him when his goddaughter pays him a visit, sending him once again all over the world. Well, Lord Deathman, did you enjoy Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? Just give me your quick thoughts.
Absolutely. I loved Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's one of my favorites in the franchise as an entry. I thought it was a very, very fitting ending to the Indiana Jones legacy. I certainly don't want to spend a lot of time giving a platform to people who had a lot of sickeningly negative things to say about this film, but I want to say that I enjoyed it start to finish, and I don't think that this is a perfect movie. I can acknowledge the fact that there are some things, some blind spots in this film, some things that do feel sometimes a little rushed or a little sloppy. But for the most part, I do think everyone's heart is in the right place. I think Harrison Ford gives, if not a career defining, you could say that over and over again for that guy, but I think he gives one of his best performances in a long time and creates a much more complex Indiana Jones than we might have been used to in some of the things where he's just kind of a little bit more charming and kind of swashbuckler, playing that character. Here he gives it a little bit more depth that I was really happy to see, and I think James Mangold, as usual, is just a fantastic director.
Yeah, did he do Steven Spielberg justice?
That's a good question, and it's actually one that I've contemplated a little bit. I don't know that he actually did Steven Spielberg justice, but I don't even know that he was kind of on the hook to do that. I think in order for Dial of Destiny to work, I think James Mangold had to have his own voice in this to be able to tell the story from his own point of view, rather than just sort of being a set of hands for or a proxy for Steven Spielberg to tell another one of those types of stories. I think the types of stories Steven Spielberg was telling with the franchise had kind of run out of steam or run out of momentum by the time we got to Crystal Skull. And even he, that he kind of needed a new voice to tell about this, to talk about this character. So, to answer your question directly, he doesn't do justice to Steven Spielberg, but I think he creates something that's equally valuable and important. And it was a great film. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, okay. Well, Taylor, your quick thoughts on the Dial of Destiny.
Indiana Jones and the Flop of Destiny. Unfortunately, the box office has been extremely disappointing. and that's too bad because I like this movie. I think it was a good movie. Is it the best Indiana Jones movie? Nope. No, not even close to the best Indiana Jones movie. But it's a good movie. The problems I had with it, we'll talk about later. I'll mostly deal with the writing. There's some writing issues, but the action, the effect. I see a lot of people online complaining about the effects and the de-aging. It all looked fine to me, especially the de-aging. I didn't notice anything. And then I hear people complain about, an old man's voice and a young man's. I didn't notice his voice when I was sitting. It didn't have any impact on me whatsoever. So the effects all looked good to me. The action scenes were great for the most part. The story, at least the overall plot, worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, overall, I had a really good time watching this movie.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed the movie from start to finish. Like Taylor said, is it the best movie? Indiana Jones movie? No, not even close. I'm still contemplating whether that's Raiders or Last Crusade, but still never can decide between the two. But I really, really, really enjoyed it, and like I said in my opening statement, from the moment Indy walks on the train and the team starts to play, it put a smile on my face. It gave me goosebumps, and that never stopped. And then you can say maybe it's nostalgia bias, maybe, but it was good nostalgia. They didn't overdo it. They hit all the tropes the way an Indiana Jones movie should hit those tropes, and yeah, to me, it felt like a good old-fashioned adventure movie, which you don't get that much nowadays anymore. And that is what made me happy. And maybe Mangold did it on his own way, but it didn't bother me in the slightest that Spielberg didn't direct it. It was great, and I just loved it. And I was thoroughly entertained. I laughed, and I enjoyed it completely. The person I went with, my wife, actually fell asleep during the second part of the movie, but that's just the way people respond differently to this kind of thing. She doesn't have the nostalgia feeling that I have for this franchise. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this movie for what it was, and it was a fitting end to a great career as Indiana Jones for Harrison Ford. I tell you that. Let's take a deeper dive, and I'm just going to let our two great panel members do that, and I'm going to start with Taylor. Taylor, take it away.
I liked how it started. I thought the flashback scene to World War II was really, really good. I thought, like I said, it really, really kicked off the movie well. And when you mentioned that an old-fashioned adventure movie that we don't see much anymore, that is exactly what people said when Raiders of the Lost Ark first came out in 1981. It's an old-fashioned adventure movie, and we don't see much anymore. So that's pretty fitting that this movie bears that description as well. I thought Indiana Jones himself, for the most part, was good in this. I think, again, with the writing, a little bit of laziness. Oh, he's old now, so he must be grumpy and not want to do anything. And it's such a kind of a cliche, kind of a stereotype that we've seen in a lot of these reboot movies where they bring back old characters, they make them grumpy and kind of a little bit annoying. Luke Skywalker, no. But throughout most of the movie, he was Indiana Jones, and he was doing Indiana Jones stuff. So I liked that. The Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the goddaughter character, she was fine. I was a little taken aback that she was kind of a crook, kind of out for herself, because that's not what I was expecting. But she turned out to be a good character, and of course she wasn't an evil character or anything, and she kind of bettered herself throughout the movie and started working towards the greater good. So I was fine with her performance. Now, there was one scene that took me right out of the movie, okay? And that was when he had the noisy neighbors. He went over there and banged on their doors. Mm-hmm. And he said, "We talked about this. and he said, "Yeah, but we said work days," and Indiana Jones said, "This is a work day." Well, before that, when he was up in his apartment, the television was on, and he was watching H.R. Puffin stuff in 1969, so it had to be Saturday morning. So it wasn't a work day.
Okay. Yeah.
Took me right out of the movie. Totally couldn't suspend disbelief after that. Just kidding.
Yeah. From all the things happening in the Dial of Destiny, that show being on a work day on TV is the most unbelievable thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was a little surprised. I know that Lord Deathman on the board has talked about, how they integrated 60s counterculture into the movie. I actually saw very, very little of that. The only real reference to it at all was the protest march that, was really just there as a crowd for him to hide in. I really didn't see much other reference to 60s counterculture throughout the movie. I mean, there were some references to it being in the 1960s. Of course, the whole moon landing thing was in the background, at least for the first half of the movie. And of course, the main villain had participated in the space program as he was plotting his plan to go back in time and make Nazis win the war. I thought that was a little bit over the top. The whole, there's fissures in time you can fly through and go back in time. I almost would have liked to see this done on a smaller scale. Almost like I believe it was another Mangold movie was Logan, where old man Logan did kind of a smaller scale adventure in his old age. It wasn't a saving the whole world type of thing. I almost would have liked to have seen that. I would have liked to see Indiana Jones and Sala and Marion and Short Round or whoever they could find team up to find an artifact and have a little adventure. But that's not the direction they went. And then the direction they did go, they executed it all really well. I thought it was a really cool scene where they were back in ancient times, where they, with all the Battle of Syracuse or whatever ancient battle they were doing there. So I thought it was all executed quite well. Again, the only issues I had was, a little bit of the writing and Indiana Jones is about action and adventure. It's not about high class stories or deep writing or complex plots per se. I thought the villains were good villains. I thought the heroes were good heroes. So like I said, I had a good time with this whole movie. It's not as good as the original trilogy. I might say it's a little bit better than Crystal Skull, because Crystal Skull had some specific issues that kind of bugged me. Not that, and I don't hate that movie at all either. I like that movie, but it was definitely the lowest of the first four. And I'm thinking this movie's a little bit better than that one also. But those are my thoughts.
I would personally rank Dial of Destiny at the same level as Temple of Doom. I enjoyed it a little bit more, but again, that may be nostalgia bias. Lord Deathman, can I have your deep dive, please?
Absolutely. I think some of the backlash to this film really comes from the fact that modern films are really changing. So you have films kind of like a Maverick or the upcoming Mission Impossible films that really go out of their way to take extreme situations and make you want to take them seriously. I think Maverick is a fantastic example of that. It never is meta. It never is self-referential. It never really doubts itself as a story. It's like, you know what? This is what the story is. We got to do the Star Wars thing and drop the bomb in the hole.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that the whole fate of the world balances on whether we can get that target. But modern filmmakers, I think, especially younger filmmakers, are using filmmaking as a way to kind of examine themselves and the culture, for better or worse. Whether you want to go see a movie that kind of is referential or doesn't quite take the material as earnestly as it should, or looks at itself as if, oh wow, this situation, it evaluates the situation. And I think there's a little bit of that in Indiana Jones, where they try to take a more grounded approach to putting this person into the time period that the film is allegedly set in for Dial of Destiny, rather than the idealistic Indiana Jones that we're used to from previous movies, where they didn't kind of do that. So I just wanted to get that out of the way to preface, to sort of be a preamble to my overall thoughts on the film. But I'll get my dislikes out of the way because there are very few of them. I do think, one, that there's a plot that involves the CIA and some kind of government conspiracy that goes nowhere in this movie, or at least it's not well explained or defined. And I think it's a huge waste of a lot of good actors that they had in those sequences that, don't do anything that really amounts to anything. Villain. That's another problem in this film. I do appreciate that they had tried to kind of link this Nazi to the post-war environment and kind of make him the Werner von Braun of this world. His participation in the rocket program. But at the end of the day, all he really wants to do is go back and sort of do what Hitler did, which is kind of like a weird kind of pathetic fanboyism in a way. It's like, and I get that if he can turn back time, things would be a lot different for him. But it's not like his life is so bad in the present day. He to go get an award from the president of the United States. There are a lot of people who are more poor off than that, or not having as great a time. But he's like, you know what, I got to take this to the extreme and put the Nazis back on top. So I didn't really sympathize with the villain. Mads does, and a very adequate job, as he always does, playing the villain, although I do think he's a little overexposed in that capacity. And then one of my favorite unsung actors, Hal Holbrook, really gets absolutely nothing to do in this film other than chase Indiana Jones and wave a gun menacingly, and dodge gunfire on cue. So he's a lot stronger than that as an actor, and I'm really surprised they kind of gave him this thug henchman role that isn't really necessary to the plot at all. So those were my three biggest criticisms of it. Now to go into what I liked, which was a ton. I love the opening to this movie. It put me right back into the mindset of classic Indiana Jones films. The score really brings you back. I didn't notice anything amiss when it comes to the de-aging. I mean, maybe in mid shots, if I'm being 100% honest, but it was certainly not enough to take me out of the movie. I love the MacGuffin. I mean, good God, that is a MacGuffin that is worthy of an Indiana Jones film, the Dial of Destiny, where I think they kind of, in Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull, you have a MacGuffin that, it's some stones and this is a pretty looking skull. And when you put it together, you get all this knowledge. And I'm like, okay, that's not as cool as Christ Cup or the Ark. But the Dial of Destiny is just awesome. I think that was a really great invention because it kind of subverts your ideas about time travel and going back and meeting yourself and messing with this or that or the other thing and the other kind of destructive things that time travel can do to a story. They sidestep all of that beautifully by making it a wonderful trip back into history. So I think they did a really good job of placing Indiana Jones in the context of the history. And I don't want to overstate the idea that the counterculture is present in this movie. I saw it as it's clear to see that the things that Indiana Jones represents in terms of archaeology in the 30s, 40s, 20s, archaeology was like the internet. People were going to different places all over the earth, digging up, King Tut, and that would make the news. And those guys were superheroes as far as making history into something that people were really into, and pulp stories got written around archaeological exploits. But by the time you get to the 60s, people are concerned with very different things. I think his clash with the neighbors that are kind of, these are supposed to be the remnants of the hippie culture. They're high, they're playing loud music. It's not just him against people who are younger, which I think is the simple way to interpret that, but it is people who really just don't care about what Indiana Jones does, right? You could even see it in the classrooms with some of the younger students. They're not engaged by his history lesson about Archimedes. They're not, because they're not concerned with the past. They're looking towards the future. And I'm sorry. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Grandmaster?
Yeah, the immediate thought that I got: why would you sit in a class of archaeology if you're not engaged with the past?
That's a fair question. I have no idea why. You might be trying to pick up an elective to get a credit to find the easy way to your degree. I
Yeah,
really I can't question what the motivation is academically. I mean, it's disappeared from the importance of the minds of young people, but I don't know that academia would have all but abandoned it. People
yeah,
even do Indiana's small, cramped apartment as, oh, why doesn't he have that huge house he used to have, like when we were watching The Last Crusade? He was like in a mansion and whatnot. And I'm like, you know what, dude, the university he worked for probably gave him that house to live in, because it's on the campus of the school in the movie. It wasn't uncommon for, in the 40s and 50s, to take a tenured celebrity professor and put him up free. It happens even today. So with archaeology kind of taking a back seat to science and science fiction, travel to the moon. I'm just trying to get to the point that I think Indiana Jones's diminished role in our society really comes from the idea that we are now in the late 60s, early 70s, and a lot of different things are going on that don't involve archaeology. I don't even recall seeing and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when I saw the sister with the afro as a CIA agent, I'm like, have I seen a black person in an Indiana Jones film? Like, it happens so rarely, right? That I'm like,
yeah.
there's your counterculture right there. Somebody in the CIA is African American or of African descent. So I think they do a good job of trying to show you that the culture has changed, and this is why Indiana may be a little cantankerous, why he feels disenfranchised. I just don't see him as this alcoholic burnout that a lot of people are trying to portray him as. He's actually really forthright in this film. He's very ethical. He's against what his goddaughter's been into as a kind of criminal and a crook, and he's constantly telling her, this is the right way to go about things. And he's not just saying that to her, he's showing her through example.
Mm.
No matter what has happened, the times have changed, but Indiana Jones is still the same guy. And I think they do a fantastic job of really getting that across. But without taking too much time, again, I could go on forever with what I really liked about this story, but at the end of the day, character wise, I think it left him in a great place by the end of the movie. I think his final adventure with friends, with family, with all the people that really love and care about him was just a wonderful sign off for the entire franchise. Him getting back together with Marion, I like, people wanted to make it sound on the internet like, yeah, he died in a sanitarium, like drinking. That's not what happened at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, he clearly gets with the woman that he's loved throughout the entire franchise. He has his goddaughter, he has his best friend, and for the first time we get to see a little bit of what his best friend's life is like. His best friend has a wife and family. I mean,
Mhm.
throughout the franchise, this guy's talking about his brother in some car, and that's all you know about Salah.
Mhm.
4 movies in a row, but he finally gets a little bit of character development in this film. I just love it as the last hurrah of an incredibly beloved hero, and I think it was dignified. And I put it as my number 3 in the franchise. There's, for me, it's Last Crusade, it is Raiders, and then it is Dial of Destiny. Temple of Doom followed. Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull kind of sharing a slot as tied for me.
Mm. Yeah, I'm same, I guess. Sort of. I don't know. I never decide between Raiders
It,
and.
it's tough because Crystal Skull. There's a fantastic shot that in Crystal Skull where Indy's walking up and seeing that mushroom cloud from the nuclear bomb. That shot will never leave. It's like one of Spielberg's greatest camera work type things. But the gophers, monkeys, the red ants. It's a very cartoonish film, Crystal Skull.
Yeah, but aren't they all? The Indiana Jones films are all a little bit cartoonish to me. But anyway, Taylor, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm different in my ratings of Indiana Jones movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my number one. Temple of Doom is actually my second favorite. I like it. I always had some issues with Last Crusade, and I know a lot of people really, really love Last Crusade. But there's not that I hate it or anything. I love it. I love it. But I didn't like the whole dynamic with Sean Connery. Just didn't care for it that much. And I didn't like the scene in the beginning of Indiana Jones as a kid. I don't care. I don't care what he did when he was 13 years old. But those things just kind of bugged me a little bit, which is only, like I said, I love the movie, but it's the reason why it's below the first two for me. And then I put, right now I'm pretty sure I'm putting Dial of Destiny in the fourth slot, and Crystal Skull for, again, not a movie I hate or anything. I enjoyed it, but for the reasons Lord Deathman said, it's got some issues. Real quick, Lord Deathman, you misspoke, and it confused me for several seconds. You said Hal Holbrook didn't do anything in this movie. That's because he's dead. It was Boyd Holbrook is the actor in this movie.
Boyd. Oh man, I resurrected Hal just for Destiny.
Okay. Oh yeah. No. Okay. Well, let's just rate Dial of Destiny then. Lord Deathman, give me your number.
Yeah. I'm going back and forth between like a 7.5 and an 8, but I'm gonna go with a strong 8. I'm looking forward to rewatching it when it comes out on home media, and I might even try to catch it again in the theaters. Really, especially the third act when you go back. It's just really, really great.
Yeah, next time I go back to the theater is for the mother of all mushroom cloud shots in Oppenheimer. But anyway, Taylor, can I have your number?
Yeah, I agree with Lord Deathman. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It's a good movie.
Well, then we're all in agreement because I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10. And by the way, Taylor, everything you mentioned, what your problem is with The Last Crusade, the dynamics with Sean Connery and Indiana Jones as a kid, is exactly what I love about the Last Crusade. So
yeah, everybody's different.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the story of the Holy Grail, which has been fascinating for me all my life, but that's another story. So 8 out of 10 for Dial of Destiny. That will conclude this review of Champions for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this review and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at sakar.freeforms.net. We would love it if you join us. Check out our review series for Secret Invasion and be on the lookout for our new series for Ahsoka starting in August somewhere. We will be reviewing Blue Beetle, and at some point we will be dropping a new podcast as well. For now, I thank you all also on behalf of our champions and wish you to be safe and be well. Goodbye.